Hi, it's Deidre. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of His Daughter, Her Dad. This episode is exploring the brother in my father. As you know, my father has so many types of experiences, whether he was the son, whether he was the husband, whether he was the father. But today we're talking about him being the brother. As you heard in the last episode, and you told him, Dad, you got a lot of siblings. And I have a lot of siblings. You know, it's important for people to know that I'm not the only kid that this man has. I'm just the only one who'll show up to a podcast with them. Maybe the others will come. We'll see. But needless to say, I'm one of 5. You're one of 10. Did you want a big family?
Well, when the 7th child, you didn't have a choice of what you want or didn't want.
Well, even, I guess, did you want a big family, like, when you got married, so on and so forth? Like, was it your intention to work towards 10 children? Or did you even want kids? Like,
it never was an option. That bond, having siblings, meant a lot to me. And I didn't even put thought to it because when I was blessed with kids, yes, I wanted them to be able to experience what I experienced with their siblings.
But you benefited from having siblings.
It definite.
So
it got me ready for you guys.
A little bit about your experience. Like, what did a day look like in a full house of students, kids, getting ready to get up and go to school? Like, was it chaos? How did you do it? How many bathrooms did you have? 1 bathroom, 1 tub, and 1 sink. Jesus.
No place to put clothing. And I'll be real with you. People, you say, I'm blessed. They say these words. But when you get understanding how you're blessed, then you can go back and look at it. Will I want to change my upbringing? No. 1 bathroom. Everybody the older kids had to get the younger kids ready for school.
So were you an older or a younger?
In the middle, yeah, you do both of them.
Okay.
Okay. There are times when you had to do the chores, the times you didn't have to. Somebody was making you do it.
Okay.
But we had a lot of parenting in the house, not mom and dad. My sister, the oldest sister, we call her baby sister.
Okay.
The
oldest sister was baby sister.
My brother called her baby sister, and that's where the name came from.
Oh, okay.
It was his baby sister until
only for a short period of time.
And everybody called her baby sister.
It's so funny because we call her, we don't say baby sister, but it's bae sister. Yeah.
It's a southern way we say I say baby sister. When I tell others it's baby sister. When I put it in my phone, I say baby sister, but it's bae sister. So we call her that. And she was the mom who wants to run the show when mom went around. And the one she didn't like, that's when you had conflict.
So were you on her good side or her bad side?
I was on everybody's good side.
I don't believe it. No,
yes,
I don't believe it.
Because I knew there was other sisters, they had rivals. They get other ones to plot against each other, and depending on what the needs were, what they were trying to accomplish, or what they were trying to get over on somebody. We never want the parents to know, mama to know what was going on, because when she found out, this is where discipline came in. She will discipline us, and this old tradition, we will get whipped from a switch. We call it a switch. We call it a whooping.
Did you have to go pick your switch?
We had to pick it out the tree. I ain't say no a brush, the tree. You got to go get it from a tree. You bring it back.
You had me do that.
And then she will spank your legs. She will whip you on your legs. She was, but she was trying to get a discipline because she had 9 other kids she had to deal with.
You learned that from your mama, because I
Yes.
strictly remember
Yes.
going to the backyard and getting a branch. And keep in mind, this was Mississippi. All that was in the backyard were tall pine trees that I didn't know how old they were. And so these were not thin switches by any stretch of the imagination. And then we bring it in the house and you wouldn't use it. And then I'd hide it. And you tell me, go buy my switch. Because I'm like, he didn't use it. So he doesn't need it. I'm going to go hide the switch because we don't need it in the house.
So you'll learn with siblings, you'll know any game you can play. They have tried everything to get out of anything. So you learn from that. That's how you learn everyday life, because you can learn it in a family of 10 round, older and younger. So I knew my sister was close to me. She always had my back. I never got in trouble because I didn't initiate it. I didn't have motives. Younger sister siblings and older ones had motives, which caused me to get in trouble, which caused me now, mom would get on me, but then it gets to a point that she's had enough. You can continue to do it more than 3 times. I learned that with you guys. Listen, I give you up to 3 times. After then, we got to go to the next level of discipline. Mom would tell dad, now you got to whoop this boy or you got to whoop this girl. Dad just came in. That was a job to him. He just listened to, okay, come in here. He don't want to hear no explanation. Did you do it? Yes. No. It don't matter. He whooped us. And I'm going to be real. Back, if you see it now, it will be child abuse. Back then, my dad, and this is real. I want y'all to imagine this, those who are looking at this, it wasn't a brutal, but it came with a discipline.
Got your attention.
It got his attention.
Snatched you up.
He will actually, my dad had a method of whooping. He was a tall man in stature. He will pull off his belt. He will put our head between his legs, his knees, and clamp our head. And that would expose your buttocks to him. He would then take the belt and come down like chopping a tree down or chopping wood on your buttocks. He will not hit you all over. He only hit you on your buttocks.
That was precision to the method.
Yes. He wouldn't hit you on your legs. He wouldn't leave no whelps, no on your back. He only hit the buttocks.
So the
Why?
whoopings work on you?
Yes, it did.
Because your whoopings didn't work on me.
I know it did. That's another podcast. We don't talk about that now. That's a whole one.
Okay, so talk to me about, your siblings. You're number 7. So, the oldest knows its role. The second to the oldest knows its role. Usually the youngest knows its role. But when you're in the middle, number 7 out of 12, like, how did you navigate? Were you just quiet and avoiding much? You didn't want to ruffle too many feathers?
It wasn't because I'd avoided. It was because that was a nature of mine, because I was a certain type kid. Every kid's got his own shyness and, inserting. And
I just can't imagine you like this shy. I just can't envision this shy David.
Yes.
Like, I can't see it.
Well, that was a part of my mom that I inherit. She was somewhat shy, but she can get vocal when a point need to be made. But she kept to herself, and she always nurtured. And that's what I was more or less, because I was a baby who didn't really want a lot. I was given a lot of attention. And my siblings, my sister, and them will always cater to me because of my size. I was a healthy baby.
What do you mean by healthy?
I was fat.
You had a little chunk to you.
I had a little fat. I was fat. Baby walking, baby crawls forward when they start crawling. I was one who crawled backwards.
Hold on, wait a minute. That was the only way you crawled.
The only way I knew to do it. And when I crawled, I didn't go forward. I went backwards. My siblings would always pay attention to me because I would crawl underneath and get stuck on the furniture. So backwards. So I was unusual. So maybe that's why they cling to me.
Okay.
All of them cling to me. So
Did you ever fight with any of them?
I didn't have to.
You never laid hands on any of your siblings?
No. No.
Dude.
They was always fighting for me. They called me the crybaby.
Oh,
Even
my
in the
goodness.
house, I would cry.
So let me interrupt. Do you remember this? So it was me and it was Shayna outside in the backyard, and at this time I was 4th grade, and we were playing basketball, and I was not good at that time. I think I got better, but I was not good at 4th grade, and Shayna was much better than me, and Brandon was better than me, and he was 3 years younger than me. And I was getting so frustrated because we were outside in the backyard playing basketball in a yard, not on concrete. So I'm trying to bounce a basketball on what used to be grass, but it's now dirt. And she makes fun of me because I did something that was off. I don't know what I did, but she makes fun of me. And I got so angry that I picked up the ball and I threw it and I hit her in the face. And she came for me and she just like jumped on me and we were fighting. And I remember like watching her. It was like an out-of-body experience on top of me. And then I turned and I saw you and Mom looking at us in the window. Why did y'all watch us fight?
Because you weren't going to hurt each other.
I thought I had skills.
Well, you had to find out for yourself.
And you know the worst of all, and I'm going to tell y'all this, because obviously I still have some pain from this situation. This was 2 weeks before my birthday. My birthday's in February. Her birthday's in June. Y'all decided to cancel my birthday, but we still had a birthday in June. My punishment was to get my birthday taken away. I don't think she ever got a punishment. I just want to put a nail in that.
Okay.
Were you treated unfairly with your siblings, or were you just, everybody loved you?
Now,
Be in the middle.
This how I learned this when it came to punishment and who got a punishment, because I always got punishment for things I didn't do. And I got the bulk of it. And my siblings knew it. And my dad say, "Oh, well, you didn't do it this time. I'm whooping you for the time you did do something." But I was always pointed at as the one who did it, and I was innocent. Mm-hmm. Okay, when you came up, it was about you was brilliant, and you have this art about yourself. You made an argument, and that's why I knew you was gonna get into communication and lawyer and all that. You always made an argument about something, take your responsibilities out of the way, because a lot of times you could have done something different to make the outcome totally different. So it was
There were two parties.
But
you could have done something different too.
But at the same time, leading up to that, you have what you want, and there was ways to get to you. Maybe your mama thought that was a way to really teach you a lesson, but I didn't know.
We never fought again.
That's true.
Never fought again.
But we didn't let y'all fight to hurt each other. It was when we was looking, and it's not that we was looking and just watching.
What's going to happen? Y'all had bets.
No, it was that we glanced and saw it and then respond, because we came out there. Eventually, we came out there and told y'all to stop. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like it was just happened to turn, and then y'all out there fighting. Mm. But y'all were siblings. Mm-hmm. So I had to come out and get an understanding. Hey, y'all don't do this. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. You both participated.
Y'all made us sit in that room together for what seemed to be hours.
Yes.
And then I lost my birthday party.
You still got something.
Y'all celebrated with me. It wasn't the same. I was supposed to have a school birthday party, but
that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Much, much cheaper to do it at home, I guess. Anyways, so moving back to your siblings, you didn't really have rivalries. Your siblings took up for each other. Let's talk about how you all got through challenging scenarios. We've already talked about the challenge with your mother's death, but were there other issues that y'all had to deal with together and get through them together?
Yeah, we constantly, when my mom passed on, you had two younger kids. As they got older,
remember how old they were?
My younger brother was probably 6, 5. He was about 6 or 7. He was in school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was in school because he started having a behavioral problem in school. He was in school, and then my younger sister they was dealing with. So the 4 kids underneath me, they were pretty much dealing with the loss and trying to find themselves, going to school and all of that. So the challenging was to make sure they had balance. But that's when you could overdo it because behavior comes out. And my younger brother created a behavior of his own because he got a lot of attention, and he became that he wasn't getting attention because of the attention that he was seeking. It wasn't because he wasn't getting it from his siblings or people that he wanted mama's attention. He began to act out, but he used that as a way of saying it's okay for me to act out in public and school. So we had a challenge dealing with him in school, and my sister going through. Then my the one is next to me, Dorothy, we call her Dot.
Don't be putting a Dot out here. Don't be saying her name. Don't be talking about what
she's the one that always fought for me.
No, she fought for you.
Oh yes.
What?
When I was in school, when there was a bully picking on me, she would come up and fight.
Oh,
I didn't have to fight.
Oh man.
I would cry. She would fight. She loved to fight. She didn't mind being expelled from school. I remember
so you had your sister handling you lightweight.
I didn't have it. They chose to. So I had my older sister fought for me, and she fought all during school, and she would fight in a minute, and they knew it. They didn't want to, but I carried myself not in fear, but in loving, and that's why I didn't do it. It wasn't because I was scared. I was scared to hurt someone, and I knew I can do it.
So close-knit family, y'all were very connected to one another. You understood each other's experiences as you were growing up. Let's fast forward to some of your adult life. How do you feel like these sibling relationships that you had kind of help grow you as an individual over time?
Wow, that's a good question because it really impacted me. As I got an adult, I went off and married and began to have a family, and I always kept in contact with my siblings because they went through so much in an adulthood that created problems for them. I remember many times because of what mom had gave me, the nurturing and caring, I didn't look at the fault. I look at the outcome being all right. And I say that word, all right, for them. All right, meaning they are getting through it. I couldn't fix it, but I was there for them. So I will always call on my siblings, those who are having problems, and we would talk. And they was able to allow me to speak to them and talk to them and making sure that what they was going through, if we stick together, we'll get through it together. It wasn't about they needed to get through it. Mom taught me how to communicate, and I didn't know I was doing that with her and with my sibling. So throughout the years, either my older ones and my younger ones and my adulthood, I was always coming back home or coming around the family house, sitting down when there was arguing. This is so important. Another thing that listeners have to understand, when you come from a large family and you are in a small house, and I'm talking about a room.
I know what you're about to say.
We have what we call the living room now because that house was turned into, the two duplex was made into a home.
Yeah.
And we was in the living room, so everybody would sit around in the living room and talk. You learn over your years that if you want to get a word in edgewise, either you're going to be silent and you're going to sit there and you'll never be heard. You'll be loved, but not heard. But when you get all of the siblings in the house, and we stayed together, and we all stayed in the house together, I mean, they come back. You learn how to get your voice to the next level.
Absolutely.
And then you got someone else with a conversation over here interrupting.
And they're going to get to the next level.
They get to the next level. So a guy my stature, a lot of times I get excited and my voice escalate and I have no clue.
And they're asking, why are you so loud?
Why are you screaming? Why are you loud?
I am so over my friends asking me, why are you talking so loud? I am genetically predispositioned to talk loud, okay? And I'm going to get your attention every time.
But keep in
people
mind.
People take it as an aggressive thing.
But they have to understand it's not. So you got to, but you still have to learn, just like I learned at an early age not to strike out and just weep. And I could have been a bad person and been an aggressive person, but I chose not to do it. Mm-hmm. We have choices. But I'm going to tell you what happened when I came to Oklahoma and I ran a company here, and I was administrator. I started an operation manager, and I would have meetings, and I would go into my normal Mississippi voice. Mm-hmm. They would look at me and be frightened.
Taken aback, yeah.
And they didn't know how to deal with me, and they thought that I was attacking them. Mm-hmm. So I had to revisit who I was, but not change who I was.
Sure.
I made adjustments.
Sure.
So when you know something, you make adjustments. So I learned to make adjustment, and it would go high and low. And it's hard sometimes when you get excited to keep it calm, but some people will be offended. So you just have to take on that.
So again, thinking about, your siblings' relationships that you were able to be a part of as a youngin', what benefit, what value does that hold dear for you right now? Because not all of your siblings are living anymore.
That's correct.
And, you all are getting older. There's challenges that are arising in your lives. I mean, there's probably always been challenges, but they hit a little different when you're older. And I'm curious, are you keeping those relationships still? Because I can remember you talk about staying connected to family. I was elated every Friday because I knew every Friday I was going to Granddaddy's house and we was going to have a Friday night fish fry. Like, now y'all was going to make us stay outside most of the time. And if I could sneak in and watch y'all play spades and dominoes, that would be like, that was my thing. I didn't want to be outside, but I still valued going to my granddaddy's house on Friday, and I wanted to go on Saturday. I wanted to go on Sunday. Like, I wanted to be there because there was just so much joy.
That's what we look forward to, even as we got older and we went our separate ways and we came back. You most have rivals in the household with siblings, and then they got something that took place when they were younger and they didn't resolve it, and then the next thing you know, they pulled away and they don't know the reason why. And a lot of times I go back and look at it, wasn't because they didn't know the reason why. They didn't want to take time to
confront the problem.
Right, because confronting, a lot of people is uncomfortable confronting. And a lot of time it's not the problem, it's what's in them. It's not the person, it's what's in them. Mm-hmm. Because if you find a place in you and you find a calmness, then you can bring calmness to the person that you're talking to. So that's what we did as siblings. One could be hot-headed. So I had some siblings that was hot-headed, okay? And they didn't like certain things and they wanted their way. But when we came as a family, we found a way to not confront, but flow through with our problems, talk it out over eating. Mm-hmm. It was all about meeting up, and we would cook, and it's like in most churches we call fellowshipping. Mm-hmm. We found resolution while we was eating.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. When problems did arise, was there a conversation and or an apology, or did y'all just kumbaya and move on? Like, was the problem ever confronted and resolved? Now, I can't say you can't speak to every situation, but what was the norm? Was the norm you just let it go and move on, or was the norm we gonna talk about this and walk through this, and perhaps there's an apology in there? Because I know you're not a huge fan of apologizing, so I'm very curious how this answer is gonna go.
It depends on who was needing, because the apology is not because it wasn't a set pattern because you had all personalities. Mm-hmm. And depending on where they were at the time of that particular day and what they was eating, depending on who was talking to them, and depending on if they is willing to set aside or keep it. Mm-hmm. So it never was a method that we had.
Sure.
We just came into that little small room. It was just touching distance. The person across the
You couldn't avoid each other.
You couldn't avoid it because you was there.
So nowadays, you can avoid each other.
You can.
You can avoid each other. You can go into your phones. You can exit stage left. I mean, there's a number of places you can go. What's your suggestion, knowing that you all had proximity, which aided you in normalizing your relationships, what would you say to folks who have unresolved challenges with their siblings? Some of those challenges stemming back to, what went on in the house, and they're still carrying that stuff with them.
Just like you carrying that thing about your sister hitting you with the basketball.
Shane and I have resolved that. Now it's the parentals that is unresolved.
But that's a wave you got out there. And I'm gonna answer your question by starting here, and then we can still get it with all the communication we're getting. Mm-hmm. Even though we was in the same room, we can see the person, or they can see each other. They still had their problems, and they still didn't want to resolve. We didn't focus on it. What actually took place is seeing something above the problem is love. And that's one thing my mom taught us, and the family understood. It was a love that we have for each other. It's not about saying, it was just that we care so much about each other. It was a point that something can be so great, but yet we can put it to the side and share what was so common with each other. And it became that the issue didn't have to be discussed because we still love each other. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people use distance and to not resolve issue, but connecting, not about the problem. And that's a lot of times people want to deal with the problem first. Let's deal with the need of the individual. We dealt with the need of the individual. We are sitting here, you want something to eat, can I get you this? Or and they pouting. Mm-hmm. And they resenting you even trying to communicate because they hadn't resolved. They wasn't ready to resolve the problem. So what we have to do is not about trying to resolve it. It's at that point, it's connecting in a way that brings all of us together. It's called love.
That makes sense, because sometimes our problems aren't going to get resolved, especially in one sitting. But if we can at least connect with each other in love, then perhaps that will overshadow some of the damage of the problem as we walk our way down to getting through it. That's hard, though. It's hard, but loving is hard. The last thing that I want to button up in this episode is, because you had such a large unit, what did you think, if there is one threat or one challenge that you all had as a family that only your unit could overcome, what would that have been?
And when you're speaking of unit, you're talking about family unit.
You couldn't have overcome it without the whole family.
It's a loved one passing on, because you now got direct attached to that loved one, and it takes some working through and working out, and it's never the exact same. It takes patience and understanding and waiting when that person is ready. So anytime a loved one passed on, it was always the biggest thing for us.
Mm-hmm. The last thing that I will say is just regarding your oldest brother, your big brother. You lost him within the past decade. And I know that was incredibly challenging. Because I know how incredible of a human being he was. I'm curious, though, how as an adult did you come to terms with that particular loss? How did you overcome that particular loss in your life? Because this is a man who taught you to stand up for yourself and was like, you're not going to lose on my team. And, he was rooting for you in his own way. And it seemed like you were probably there more for him during your mother's loss than he was there for you. How did you cope with losing him?
It came from when I came to understanding, and after I got at a certain age and I married, I knew my Heavenly Father, I knew God, and because I needed that connection with a better understanding, because I was seeking it, because I still wasn't over my mother's death, and we're going to talk about that more, connecting that, but after it came to the point of losing your mother, it gave me an understanding of death, which means after then, every time I lost a loved one, I understood. So because my brother Carl Earl Howard, he liked to be called Carl Earl, because when we get in trouble, my mom would call us by our first and middle name to get our attention. But Carl and I, for the last 6 years of his life, because he was going one direction, and I came to Oklahoma, but when I started going back, we started connecting as one-on-one. So every time I go back, the first person I will come in contact with or hang out with was with my brother. We began to talk about a lot of different things. He had family, I had family. So I learned something about him. He began to listen to me more about challenge that he was having, raising his kids and going through things. So we got to a point of understanding each other. And I told him, Carl, you my rock. What I'm at because of you. Said, no, that's not true. You inspires me.
That's what he told you?
He told me this. He said, many times I didn't have anybody to go to. When you and I talk, you brought sense to what I was doing and trying to do. And I didn't know this. In other words, he said, I listen to you and I respect you, David. I respect you. So that made me look at my brother in a different way. I'm looking up to my brother. And now I'm looking with my brother.
Sure.
So we had an understanding about who we were with each other. And it created a relationship, and that word gonna come out a little bit more later. Yeah. So when he passed, I was okay because I had a relationship with him.
Okay. I want to go back to one thing, because I said what challenge you all had to overcome collectively, and there's a challenge that I know about that I do want you to speak on, that couldn't have, from my vantage point, it had to take the family and maybe the village to get through this. I don't know how public or private the scenario was, but my granddaddy, your father, nearly burned down the house twice because he was drinking. Talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
And how y'all overcame that together, because it wasn't just one person in that house that got y'all through that.
Right. My father, after my mother passed, he went totally into drinking 7 days a week, dealing with his pain. My dad had he can cook. Okay.
He could cook like he was good at it.
I'll put it like this. He would go in the refrigerator, put a lot of stuff together and call it a dish, but you couldn't identify it, but he ate it.
He sounds like my brother.
Okay. But he will be
sardine po' boy.
Yeah.
Sardine po' boy. Y'all look it up.
But he can provide for himself, when he wanted to. But he would he went in the kitchen a couple of times a day. My sister and them was always making sure he ate. But sometimes he'll go in there and he'll try to cook him something. You can't tell him, you can't stop him. They just watch him. But there was one time you went in there and he tried to prepare a meal in a skillet and then put grease in it, and the grease splattered and it caught the stove and the counter and the cabinets on fire, and then it burns up into the roof and called the fire department.
And this is the era of wood paneling.
We didn't have, it wasn't no paneling. Yeah, wood paneling. Yeah, wood paneling. Yes. And it burned and started burning. They called the fire department. It comes in and they pull my kids and everybody get out of the house. He's out there and the streets can barely stand up, just drunk. He don't care about nothing. But
the whole neighborhood saw this.
Oh yes, everybody. We consider the neighborhood so close. They want to know what's going on in everybody's house. So everybody knew that. They say his name. They call him Wardell. Wardell done burned the house down. It wasn't burned down, but it burned a lot, and it took us out for a while. We had to go and stay with my granddaddy in his house. We stayed in his house for a while until they repaired that house. Okay. Then I say
so how'd y'all get through that?
It didn't interrupt. Only thing it interrupt us going to school. It wasn't about the house was burned, because one thing about family, whatever happened, other family member comes in and help out and make it okay. So we felt still wrapped around by love. Family, his family, my mom's family, they all came in and whatever we need. So we didn't look at losing something or he burned the house. We was in a different setting that was being taken care of. We was fine, you know. Then the second time it happened when he got a little bit older, I was living not too far from there, and he did it again. They called me and said, "Dad, done burned the house down again." I drives over there so quick, and then he's out there in the yard. I get him, put him in the car. Now I'm upset. Now he done burned the house down, and my siblings, again, I'm thinking they ain't got nowhere to stay. And then I'm looking at him in my seat, on my front seat of the car, and I kept looking at it. I'm angry in the beginning. And you got to understand this. A lot of times when you see something, you react to it. But what I saw a man, and it reminded me at that point, I had graduated from college. I had a full-time job. How did I get where I'm at? Because of this man. This man didn't know how to say, "I love you," but I knew he loved us. And I looked at him weeping, sitting on the front seat. He was weeping because he hated what had taken place, but he was devastating. Everything in his life was being taken away. And for that few minutes, I began to not talking about what he did and understand the Lord put it on my heart. This is a man in pain. Did not know how to deal with it all your life. He used the best method he could on weekends to numb his pains, to go to work and provide for you and your siblings. Now he's done something that everybody pointing fingers at him. Who is helping him now? Ever since that day, my dad can do no wrong.
Oh, that's a Father's Day story right there.
Yes.
That's a Father's Day story. Woo-wee. Glad you never burned the house down or attempted to. If you did, I didn't see you do it. Appreciate that. Thanks for saving me on that one. But, you know, I love the way you're talking about my grandfather, because while I knew he drunk and he was a drinker, and, you know, our cousins would make fun of him sometimes because he'd do goofy things. Like, I never felt like you didn't love that man. Like, I never heard you say anything bad about him. Wouldn't have even known about burning the house down. And I think that is an attribution to the respect that you have of him. I have nothing but fond memories of him, even when he was, you know, in slumps. Like, for some reason, he could still figure out a way to connect with his granddaughter. And he called me what Uncle Carl called me, Dee Dee. Like that was his name for me. And so I appreciate the fact that you allowed me to see the good in him, because we all have things. And I was able to see that with him. So that was helpful. Well, if you're tuning in today, you're listening to an episode of His Daughter, Her Dad, an exploration of my father's life. And the reason why we do this is because I am who I am because of him. And if I don't know who I am on most days, I can probably go and find out who I am through him. And I want to thank you for tapping in to listen to the brother episode, talking about him as a brother, talking about his experiences as a sibling and with his other siblings. Looking forward to the next episode. Make sure you pop in for the stew.